Muhammad married Aisha when she was 9 years old. Some emoji here. And he was 54 years old. How can a prophet from God do this? Alright, so this is a comment that is a form of a question that started a discussion, a thread basically. So we will go in this video throughout this thread to see how the conversation goes, right? So care to pinpoint the main problem you have with this marriage, because the way he phrases it is quite interesting, because he mentioned the marriage of number one, number two her age, and number three his age, and then the question, how can a prophet of God do this? So based on this, it seems that this is a problematic thing, right? So I would like to understand what exactly he is stating as the problem, right? So care to pinpoint the main problem you have with the marriage. Is it the age when he decide to marry? Meaning, are you saying that this is too old to get married? Because you specifically mentioned this age. Because some people just mention this, right? So I understand, okay, so we have a problem with that. But now you include this as well. So is it because this is also a problem? Or is it the age gap? Because you mentioned both age. So is it the age gap? Or is it the age of the wife? But if this is the case, you wouldn't specify the age of the husband as well. Because if this is a problem on its own, you would have just specified that. And that is enough for a problem, right? But the fact that you mentioned the secondary info, or not the secondary, the second info, so what exactly is the problem? I just want to understand. Or is it only wrong to marry a girl that age after you are above certain age? Or is it, I don't know, not good if you are already 50 plus to marry that age? It must be the age number, given that aspect is what you highlighted, despite the whole marriage experience is a positive one for her, as told by herself, right? So I assume whatever, I'm not sure which of this is the actual problem, but whichever it is, it must be with regard to the age number, right? Because if you are saying that she's too young, her well-being is not taken care of, blah blah blah, that is not the case based on what actually happened throughout the marriage, right? So it must be purely the age number and not her experience as a whole, because the whole experience, as told by herself, is a good one. It's a positive one. It's a romantic story. It's a perfect, not perfect from human experience, meaning that it is as good as a marriage that we can aspire to have, for example, right? So from that perspective, it is positive. So the only problem that I assume he have is the age number, right? So that is where it started, and then we have a back and forth, as we will see. And now he replies stating, I mentioned Muhammad's age merely to give context that he was an adult. That is interesting, because normally, if to differentiate between minor and adult, for example, someone who is already 20 or 22, you mentioned that, right? Meaning, oh, I thought because he seems to be like 16, but 20. That is normally how one would specify the age to say he's an adult. But normally above that age, if you are mentioning, it's not just about an adult. We want to say that he is a senior citizen. I don't know, because normally an adult just say he's already an adult, right? You agree that someone that is 6 is a child, correct? Muhammad was 54 and an adult. Muhammad married Aisha at 6 and had sex with her when she was 9. A child that at that age simply isn't mature enough to give a consent. Okay, right. So now he mentioned a new topic that is not mentioned before, which is mature enough to give consent. According to the Quran, she was still playing with dolls. Okay, now not only that, he added on one statement that is factually false, right? She was still playing dolls according to the Quran, right? So according to the Quran, she was still playing dolls. I'm not sure where he get this from. Anyway, this is a form of rape. Unfortunately, the prophet you choose to follow is a okay. I do not want to read this because this is an accusation that is vile. Is this the example of a man you want to follow? Right? The way you depict it based on whatever you have in your mind, I'm not following that. I'm following the actual Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam based on what actually happened. Right? Whatever you accuse him of, or you have in mind the twisted thing that you have, that's not what I follow. Anyway, so to this, because there are several things. One is about adult marrying child, and second about mature enough to give consent, and third about untrue statement here, right? So now my comment state, oh okay, so the problem is that he is an adult when he married the young wife, right? Had he not yet an adult, you would not have much issue with such marriage then, because he's not saying that the marriage is because she's young. The way he phrases it is that he's an adult. Why would he marry this young girl? So okay, so if he is still very young, then is that not a problem then? Because I'm not sure what his frame of mind when he says that, right? Because I'm just follow the way he phrased his sentence. I do not want to assume things about people. I go with what they say. Also, you did mention the waiting period between the age and the consummation of marriage, right? Because in the first statement, he just mentioned one age, but then in the latest comment, he mentioned 6 and 9. So meaning that there are time gap there, right? Normally, people that highlight this waiting period cite the reason for waiting her to reach the sexual maturity, right? So that's why the wait happened. If we agree that such wait took place, your problem with the marriage would be the number of age itself, right? Not her condition to be ready for such relationship. On the age of consent to marry, what is the baseline and guideline that we can accept as an agreed upon standard? Yeah, because he didn't mention any line where it should be above that. He just said that's too young. So I'm just curious. Okay, what line would you say that is the valid standard that we live by? I'm not sure if we have had any conversation before. I'm asking this because this seems to be a new user on my comment section. Normally there are several 2, 3, 4 users that comment a lot, so I have an idea. Okay, they are from this belief system, etc., etc. So I know who, meaning how I know how to word my response, right? So here, because I haven't had any encounter with him before, so I have to ask. So may I ask whether the standard that you can accept is the standard set in our time in the Western world, or you accept the standard set by God that you believe in based on any specific religion, or perhaps other standard? I'm asking because I prefer not to assume things about people, right? So because there are Christians that I would assume, okay, you believe in law, etc., is set by God, right? Because that's one thing. But for an atheist, for example, they do not have this concept of God, etc. So they have perhaps the Western standard, or I don't know. There are some Christians that follow more the Western standard rather than the Christian teaching, etc., right? So there are various different people that I have seen. So I'm curious which one is he. And then actually, to the Quran, she was still playing with dolls. This is a quote from her comment. So my statement, I am sure this is not according to the Quran. Perhaps you actually want to say that this is according to Hadith, right? So I'm assuming, I just want to land like this is a husnul zon, for example. Maybe he make a mistake in stating that. Maybe he want to say the Hadith, but because he didn't really, I don't know. So mistakenly he write Quran, perhaps, right? I'm sure this is not according to Quran. Perhaps you want actually to say it is according to Hadith, or actually you mean according to the Quran, or actually he is convinced this is in the Quran. If this is the case, can you pinpoint which verse in the Quran that state as such? So this is to give him a chance actually to go and try to find, and at least to realize, wait, okay, I make a mistake, it's not in the Quran, it's in the hadith, for example, right? So at least he can say, even if he want to pray that, oh, actually I misspelled this, it's actually hadith. Even if he want to do that, I'm willing to let him do that, right? So this is a chance for you to actually double check and come back with whatever reasoning you want to give. And with what do you mean by when you say it is a rape, right after saying about playing with dolls? How is the two connected? Right? Because he say the Quran says playing with dolls, and this is rape, for example, right? So is there a direct correlation with the two statement or what, right? I just want clarity on that. The prophet that I choose to follow is a prophet that is shown to be a true prophet, because at the end he asked, is this the prophet that I want to follow? So I just explain myself. The prophet that I choose to follow is a prophet that is shown to be a true prophet of God, who had shown a real life example on how to lead a life when you have a wife that was previously a widow, a wife that is young, etc. The different wives have different background and reality, right? So Prophet Muhammad SAW, one of the wisdom of the various marriages is how in operation real life dealing with the differences, right? Because one is very young, one had a husband before and become a widow, etc., right? So those are the example being shown. So whatever your circumstances is, whatever type of marriage you have something to draw from, right? When you ask about him being an example, do you simply have an idea about the age or about the practice within the marriage, right? So that's the thing. When I say I follow him as an example, I dig into what is the practices, how he managed things, how he deal with the wife, right? So that is the aspect that we look into to get to draw from the example, right? I'm not sure whether his example is just okay, you marry this number. I don't see that as a real life. I don't know. We have the whole picture. Perhaps that's why it is easier to see why the example shown is a great example to aspire to, compared to those who only know the age of one of the wife and not knowing anything else, not knowing that the other wives, what are the age, how and what happened within the marriage, etc. Those information I assume he don't even know. He only know one tiny bit of information, the age of that particular wife, and he go on in to say this is a bad example, right? So that's the thing. Perhaps because we know the whole thing, it's easier to see okay how it is compared to just one fact without any related information you don't even know, and then you draw whatever mental picture that you want to have, and suddenly you say because of what you already have in mind with regard to that number, right? If I'm in this number, I become like that. So you impose that idea into Prophet Muhammad SAW. That's normally how I see it, right? Normally what kind of words being used in that context is based on their internal thing, right? If I marry something like this, right? So normally they impose whatever they have inside them onto Prophet Muhammad SAW, which is why I see there's a lot of problem. I merely stated Muhammad's age to give context that he was a 50 years old adult man. Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 and had sex with her when she was 9. You agree a 6-year-old girl is a child, right? A child that age simply isn't mature enough to give any consent. Alright, so based on this, the issue is consent, right? Consent of marriage, what age? But he didn't give, so what age is where the consent line is, right? So just say 6 is not enough. The Quran even mentioned, okay, again he stated this one, which is totally and categorically false. You can Google, find Quran saying, you will not find, you will find anything like this. Normally, okay, this is going off on a tangent, right? I'm not sure whether Christian like this have the idea that Quran is similar to the Bible, right? Because the Bible tell the story about Jesus, right? So it's some similar like the Sirah, right? So it tells the story about Jesus. So if this guy thought that the Quran similar to that, meaning that the Quran tells the story about Prophet Muhammad SAW, then you can expect story like this may be inside there, right? Because it tells the story about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if you have even, you know, try to look into it a bit, you will know that, oh wait, Quran claimed to be revelation from God. It is not someone telling the story about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? It is revelation teaching Muhammad how to live, how to do things, correcting Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, etc., right? So even if you are guessing, you wouldn't guess something like this would be in the Quran, right? Your first guess would not be there. The first guess would be either in the Sirah or in the Hadith, because this is story about what happened, right? It's not like instruction from God, right? So that's bizarre to me, right? Meaning that he have never opened or studied anything about the Quran at all, perhaps, that you can even make this statement, right? Otherwise, I don't see any other logical possibility, because if you have studied any, even if you want to study to find things to attack, because some people seems to be doing that, right? They go into the Quran just to find something to argue against. Even if you do that, you will not make this statement, I would think, because you would at least have an idea. Okay, the Quran is something like this, the structure is something like this, right? This would not be in there. I'm not saying whether it happened or not. I'm saying that story about Prophet Muhammad, story about the marriage would not be logically in the Quran, right? So that's, I don't know. The Prophet you have chose to follow, okay, blah blah blah. So this is whatever followed here is already accusation, and he have the conclusion in his mind regardless of the fact that I reply, right? So yeah. To your question about the age of consent, I asked earlier about the standard you hold on to with regard to the topic or to the aspect. Now, why I ask? Because I want to know his framework and his background. Because if he adhere to the Western world standard, that's one thing. But if he actually believe that God is the one that set the criteria for us, then because the flow of the discussion would follow either or, right? This is to avoid me sharing my perspective as a Muslim in a way that is not suited to the audience or to the person. Because if you are a Christian, then I would share the perspective based on someone already believing in God and believe that God is the authority to determine laws. But if you are an atheist or free thinker or etc., that do not meaning you do not believe in God, rather believe in the standard of the modern Western world, I would have to share with a different starting point for a proper understanding. You again repeat a statement that the Quran states about her playing with dolls. Please state the verse number if that is true, as I already gave my response to this statement in my earlier comment, but you keep insisting it as indeed in the Quran, so please provide the evidence. So I haven't heard a response yet to this, because I'm pretty sure if he tried to look it up, he will not find it in the Quran for sure, right? So I'm interested to know, because he keep repeating that, what will he say about it, whether he mistaken, whether I don't know. So that's the thing. And which is the age of consent, because so far I haven't actually addressed it, because I want to know the starting point that is appropriate for him. But because he never mentioned anything to indicate that is he a Christian that believe that God is the one that set the law, or is he following the Western world standard, I don't know where to start, basically, right? But if we go with meaning if he is indeed a Christian that believe that God is the one that set laws, then from Muslim perspective you have to see the sets of regulation as the entirety, right? In entirety, right? So the age of husband and wife is part and parcel of the bigger thing in terms of what is the element that must be there for a marriage to take place. Among others is the wali, right? So perhaps in Christianity, I'm not sure, because if he's Christian and he says that in Christianity this is the age, blah blah blah, normally there's a set of things that makes that work. In this case, in Muslim, I'm not elaborating this in depth, I'm just touching a bit, so that for those who don't know anything about Islam, there's a set of things that makes it work in a certain way, right? So if the wali function, meaning if that's the wali that have the best interest of the wife to be, and know the wife, know where is she, blah blah blah, and know the potential husband, and know this is the best for her, etc etc, right? So the protector, the wali or the protector of the girl is there to ensure that nothing is off, that this is the best, etc etc, right? So I'm not, this is not exhaustive or proper elaboration, but I'm just saying, if you want to impose a certain number of age that is from a complete set of regulation here, and you take it out and you want to impose it to a totally different system, right? And you see that, see if this age yeah, because you are taking just one parameter to a totally different system, it wouldn't work that way, right? So that's just introduction of what constitute a marriage in Islam, why all those elements have to be there, why it would actually work in that framework, even though the woman is not like the normal age there, why it still work here, etc etc, right? So that's a discussion on its own, but I cannot go into it when I do not even know where you stand, basically. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you gain something, hopefully you know there's some benefit of this. Feel free to comment anything that I missed. Thank you for watching. See you next time.